And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Legal Lunch and Learn, a weekly live show where we ask an expert your question on a legal topic. My name is Cindy, and I am a staff attorney here at Maryland Legal Aid. My co host today is not Megan. My co host today is our senior attorney of training, uh, attorney Todd Cagwin.
How's it going, Cindy?
Hi, Todd. And of course, in the background, working tirelessly to make sure everything is running smoothly is our production engineer, Alec Chase. And of course, joining us today is our expert on housing law, staff attorney Tim Darby. Hi, Tim.
Hi, how's it going?
And today's topic is tenants' rights when it comes to animals. So, be it pets, emotional support animals, or service animals. So, if you have questions about any of those or about what your rights are when it comes to a tenant with animals, you can drop them in the comments down below and we'll get to them towards the end of the show. You can also private or directly message us if you would like to remain anonymous. Of course, if you do have immediate legal issues or want to talk to us one on one about your particular situation, you can reach us at email lawyer at mdlab.org. That's LAWYER at mdlab.org. Or call us at 443-451-2805. And of course, we'll go ahead and drop those contact information in the comments. So if you missed it, you can go back there to retrieve it. Before we get started, here's our weekly disclaimer as well. Just because you do listen to our show every week and you do take some legal advice from this show, it does not establish an attorney-client relationship between any of the attorneys that you see here today or Maryland Legal Aid. So again, if you do want to talk to an attorney one-on-one about your legal issue, make sure that you contact us. And last but not least, if you do need captions, we do upload these videos after we go off live to YouTube, and we will update you on what the links are to YouTube in the caption down below. So for those who need captions, make sure you click on that to go to YouTube for the auto captions. So with all of that out of the way, one of these days I feel like I will make this into a song and I'll just sing it every time. But with all of that out of the way, hello Tim, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Always happy to be here on a Tuesday. I was going to say morning, but it's Tuesday noon. Tuesday afternoon. It's 2 minutes after noon. So before we get started on the topic, I want to talk to you just real quick about the experience that you might have in housing.
Certainly. So, after I graduated from law school, I had a judicial clerkship, and then I worked at a housing aid nonprofit for a few years. And now I am with the Community Lawyering Initiative at Maryland Legal Aid. We handle all kinds of civil legal issues, including housing issues.
Yep, that's great. So I don't actually know you that well, but I do know that you do have pets. So how many animals do you have, and what are they?
I sure do. I have two cats. One is named Nick Furry, and the other is named Bean. And I love them very much, no matter what trouble they give me every single day.
Is does Nick Furry only have one eye?
He sure does. He has one eye
Yes.
and too many toes.
Yes, those are the best. So, for our viewers out there who don't know me, I have three cats. Many. Some might say too many, but no, I feel like one human to three cat ratio is pretty good. It's pretty good. I could use more cats. And they're all very healthy. No missing eye or extra toes. I'm sorry. One is slightly munchkin though. Her legs are very short.
That's
She's
the
the
best.
smallest and the meanest one. And I do have a dog who is a tripod. We did have to take a leg after. I think she actually had a bad leg before we adopted her, but we did have to take a leg after the vet said it was better to just remove that leg. So, and she's very sweet. Um, so yeah, I could talk about animals all day, but that's not why we're here today. Today we are talking about tenant rights when it comes to animals. So just to get started, there are many different levels of protection when it comes to tenant rights, when it comes to animals. So we're kind of going to go with the kind of animal with the most protection to the ones with least protection. So we'll start with service animal, and then we'll go to emotional support animals, and then we'll talk about pets. So service animal, Tim, what are service animals?
Sure. So the Americans with Disabilities Act defines service animals as dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. So think of like a seeing eye dog. That's a service animal.
Does it say dog specifically, or can other animals also be service animal?
So the Department of Justice has an interpretation that a miniature horse can be a service animal as well, though there are some considerations that can be made for that miniature horse, including their size, whether the handler has sufficient control over it, whether that miniature horse is housebroken, and whether it presents any kind of specific safety hazard.
So if someone has a service animal or needs a service animal, can a landlord demand to see, a prescription or some kind of proof that this is a service animal and not some other kind?
No, they can only ask two questions. The first is if it's a service animal for a disability. The second is what work the animal has been trained to perform. They're not obligated for any information beyond that.
Yep. So just to make that clear, does this mean that if I do have a service animal, I do not, or do I have to tell my landlord what my disability is?
No, you don't. You have to tell them what service the animal has been trained to perform, but not what your specific disability is.
So it sounds like a landlord can't ask some sort of proof, right? Or is
Yeah.
there some way around it? Yeah.
So if the landlord is a stickler and demanding proof that they're not entitled to, the tenant can file a complaint with the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, which is part of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They should also certainly contact an attorney, like us at Maryland Legal Aid. Landlord-tenant relationships can be really tricky, and it's always good to have a lawyer on your side.
Yep, 100%. So it would be what I believe is the highest level of protection when you do have an animal who is specifically trained to perform a certain task for you due to your disability. So let's move to emotional support animals. And I believe the definition of this is a little bit broader. Can you tell us about emotional support animals?
It is. It's a broader category of animals with more rules. You have to affirmatively request a reasonable accommodation, provide information that reasonably supports the fact that you have a disability, and provide information that reasonably supports the fact that the animal does work, performs tasks, provides assistance, or provides therapeutic emotional support.
So when you say reasonably request or provides these information, who are you providing those to? Is it to a doctor, to your landlord?
To your landlord, you don't have to actually give, you know, it, specific documents from your doctor, just anything that reasonably supports those two factors.
Um, so is it the case that sorry, I'm a very direct person, as you know.
It's okay.
so if I feel like let's say one of my cats really calms me, and especially during COVID, I think a lot of people are adopting dogs or cats or whatever animals that's your jam. So a lot of people are adopting animals to cope with the stress of
Mhm.
COVID and being quarantined and not being able to see their family member, for example. Do you think that would be uh, do you think the animals that you adopt would be emotional support animals? Do you have to go see a medical care professional for that to
Prob-
happen?
Probably not. Just the fact that, this is a trying time for everybody. We're all stressed out. That doesn't rise to the level of having a disability, and that pet would not be affirmatively providing therapeutic emotional support. So that would not probably be a service animal. I'm sorry, a
Yep.
support animal.
Yep. Um, so are there any limitations on what kind of animals cannot be support animals?
So any kind of animal can be an emotional support animal, but if it rises to the level of a complaint, there's a higher burden on animals that aren't normally kept domestically. So it's the difference between, let's say, a dog and a hamster and a monkey and a kangaroo. You don't typically see a kangaroo living in someone's house, so the burden would be higher to prove that that is a support animal.
Yep, and I don't think a kangaroo would be very happy
I
inside a
don't
house
think
either.
so either.
Yep, animal welfare is also very important. It's good for the human to have animals, but sometimes it's not the best for an animal to have that human. But that point aside, so when it comes to emotional support animals, what kind of proof or um, documents can a landlord demand if a landlord wants to
So
demand
just
it?
anything that reasonably supports the fact that the tenant has a disability and that the animal does work, performs tasks, provides assistance, or provides therapeutic emotional support. The tenant can show them documents from a doctor's office, a prescription, something like that, but just anything that reasonably supports those two conclusions.
Right. Do you have to have a disability to have emotional support animal?
Uh, Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, yes, you do have to have a disability.
And so if you do have an emotional support animal, so that's obviously not a pet, do you have to tell your landlord what service your animal provides?
So you have to provide some information that the animal provides some kind of therapeutic emotional support. So yes.
Yeah. And if your landlord is demanding proof beyond that, I think this might be the same answer as the previous section when we talked about service animal. But so if your landlord is asking for proof beyond what is required by law, what can't you do?
You're absolutely right. It's the same answer. It's, the tenant can file that complaint, and I would advise contacting an attorney as well.
Yep, absolutely. And we are here to help.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, our contact info is in the comments down below if you need it. So let's move on to the bigger section that we're going to talk about, which is pets. I think a lot of times people with disabilities, with either emotional support animal or service animal for that matter, are aware of their rights. And there's certainly a lot of other groups out there who do talk about your rights when it comes to a person with a disability. But then we have this larger group of tenants who just have pets. So let's just start very broadly. Um, can the landlord evict you if you don't tell them about the pets that you have in the house?
So it depends on your lease. If there's a clause about pets and it says no pets, and you buy a pet, then yes, that is a breach of the lease. And the landlord can file an action for that breach of lease that could ultimately result in eviction. If there's nothing in the lease, though, that says anything about animals, then no, your landlord can't evict you just because there is no breach of that lease.
What if you don't have anything in writing?
So then that would be an oral lease. And so the landlord would have to give a 30 days notice to modify that oral lease, or 60 days in Baltimore City.
To I'm sorry, to modify the or lease to say no animals, or
Correct. Yeah.
to kick you out. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So theoretically, theoretically, I think, and the reason I'm being very specific with this, I think most of people out there who do live in the city probably don't have a written lease. Some do, but a lot of people don't.
Hmm.
So if your landlord finds out that you have an animal and you don't have a written lease and you are paying month by month,
Hmm.
and your landlord finds out that you have an animal that you didn't tell them about, or it just the topic never came up,
Hmm.
um so they can give you a 30-day notice and then say no animals,
Yeah.
and
60
then you had
days.
or 60 days, I'm sorry, in so 30 days outside Baltimore City, 60 days in Baltimore City. So they can tell you, hey, I don't want animals here, and then in 60 days demand you to remove your pet, or
Yes.
or and
Or
if you don't,
if
I'm
you
sorry, go
don't,
on.
sure. If you don't, then they can say that that is a breach of that oral lease because it was modified to have that restriction against pets. If this ever comes up, I would encourage everyone get everything in writing, just because, you know, when you have an oral lease, it's so hard to demonstrate what is actually part of that agreement.
Right. So let's go back to having a pet in the house, maybe with your landlord's knowledge. Can your landlord charge you extra for having a pet?
Yes, so that's commonly called pet rent. I pay it myself, and that is allowable for the landlord to charge more for pets.
Yep, with a lot of animals myself, there have definitely been times, and I move a lot. Definitely been times where I did not tell my landlord. I'm
Mhm.
hoping my current landlord isn't listening. There are definitely times where I did not tell my current landlord either I have pets or the exact number of pets that I do have. Because I do mean to ask this too. Can landlord deny you a lease if you have, let's say, too many animals that they feel?
Yes, they can put limits on the number of animals, and they can also restrict what kinds of animals. I know when I was a kid, Rottweilers were the scary dogs of the day, and landlords often wouldn't rent to tenants who had Rottweilers. Now it's pit bulls. Who knows what the next scary dog is going to be? But you know, there are these stereotypes about these animals that are unfortunately pervasive.
Right. And not true. I'm just
Correct.
gonna point that out there.
Yes, of
Dogs
course.
are great. So you're talking about breed of dogs there. What about type of animals? Can they say yes to cats but no dogs, or yes to cats and dogs but no snakes?
Exactly. Yes, they can.
Yep.
Assuming these are pets and not covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yep. And give me just a second here. I'm sorry. Going back to landlord charging a pet fee or a pet
Mhm,
deposit. Are there
mhm.
any limits on how much they can charge?
Yes, for a security deposit, it cannot be more than 2 months' rent, but they can charge an additional deposit beyond what they normally charge for tenants who do not have animals.
I'm sorry. I lost the last couple of words there.
Sure,
Beyond.
beyond what they charge for tenants without animals, they can charge an extra $100 or whatever, as long as it's not more than 2 times the monthly rent
So is that the total security deposit
total.
or total? Okay. So security deposit plus pet deposit cannot be over two times your monthly rent.
You got it.
Yep. All right. And what do you do if your landlord is demanding that, saying that you have to pay three times the rent before you can move in because you have an animal?
Well, certainly don't pay it. Let the landlord know that they can't legally charge more than 2 times the monthly rent. And I would say contact an attorney.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, when you move out, and if the landlord doesn't return your security deposit, either security deposit or pet deposit in this context, but if they don't return the deposit, what can you do?
Yeah, you can go to court to demand that deposit back. They need to give you an itemized list of why these charges were withheld. And there's the standard of normal wear and tear. And so I like to call it the difference between a scuff in the wall and a hole in the wall. So if someone's living in a apartment for 4 years, the carpet's not going to be great. There's going to be some scuffs. There's going to be some, you know, uh, all from hanging pictures, that kind of thing. But if there's like stains in the carpet or the cat clawed up a door, then that is damage that can be withheld from a person's security deposit.
Yep, I just want to say that my cats have never clawed up a door. I'm lucky that way though.
You are very lucky. I think mine might be doing that right now.
They do tear up the carpet. I think I mean I did pay a security deposit, a very high one, because we have so many animals. When I move into the current apartment, and I have a feeling we are going to have to forfeit a lot of that because of the carpet that's being ripped up by all the cats.
You and me both.
Yep. Well, but they animals do provide a lot of emotional support, even for those without disabilities. I think it is a calming presence, except when they're throwing up 3 in the morning. For the most part, they're a calming presence. Um, I think that's all the questions actually that we got before we started the live show. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it to Todd today, our special co-host, for questions that came in during the live show and any questions we might have from the audience.
Yeah, so thank you, Cindy. There are a couple questions that have come through. One is, my landlord says that I have to leave because I have an unauthorized animal in my apartment. What should I do?
So it depends on the lease. If the lease says that you're not allowed to have animals and you do, then you could potentially risk eviction. I would talk to the landlord, see if you can work something out. But if the lease says no animals and you have an animal, then that is a major breach of the lease. So the landlord can go to court for a breach of lease and ask a judge for an eviction order.
Okay. And one just popped through, I think, because of a word you just mentioned. So are evictions happening right now? Can I be evicted right now?
Yes, evictions are currently happening right now. There was a moratorium briefly at the beginning of the pandemic, but right now evictions can happen. If it's for failure to pay rent, then a defense to that is that you lost income because of the pandemic, but that's only for failure to pay rent, not for a breach of the lease like having an unauthorized pet. So that process can move forward right now.
Okay. And next question is, my neighbor's dog barks constantly and I can't sleep. What can I do?
Talk to your neighbor. That would be number one. If that doesn't work, then if you're comfortable, you can talk to your landlord. If that doesn't work, then you can go to court and argue that the landlord has breached what we call the covenant of quiet enjoyment. That's a very high burden, but if it is truly preventing you from properly using the premises as agreed upon in the lease, then the court can end your tenancy or force the landlord to fix that problem.
Okay. I just see two more. I really like exotic pets. Are there any limits to the kinds of animals I can have?
So check your lease, because like we talked about before, the landlord can restrict certain kinds of animals or only permit certain kinds of animals. But in the state of Maryland, the law prohibits the exchange and breeding of, and I have this list here, foxes, skunks, raccoons, bears, caimans, alligators, crocodiles, wildcats, wolves, non-human primates, and venomous snakes. So if you're trying to be Joe Exotic, I would not recommend it.
Okay. And another one just came through. Are there any special laws regarding Staffordshire Terriers or pit bulls in regards to insurance?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't actually seen this in practice. I would have to look that up.
Okay. And the last one before that one just came through is, I need an animal for emotional support, but my landlord says no animals. What can I do?
I would request a reasonable accommodation. Let the landlord know that there are federal laws that force landlords to make those accommodations when the tenant provides information that reasonably supports the fact that they have a disability and that animal assists in that disability.
Okay. And that looks like all of the questions that I have that came through.
Alrighty.
I guess I'll pass it back to Cindy.
Yep, I'm still here. I never left. The magic of Zoom. I actually think I missed something back when we were talking about service animals and emotional support animals. Can a landlord, I know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Can a landlord demand a pet fee or pet deposit when you have a service animal or emotional support animal and not a pet, obviously?
No, and that just goes along that reasonable accommodation, at least for support animals. They can't charge an additional amount of money if you're protected under that law.
Yep. And I also don't know if there's any laws when it comes to insurance companies charging extra if you do have a pit bull, but I do know that my current insurance does charge extra if you have a pit bull. So for the purpose of our dog, she is a German Shepherd and a Husky mix and nothing else.
It's a big dog.
She actually isn't. She's actually more on the Husky size.
Okay.
Yeah, some people might call her big. She's about 60 pounds, but I think she's more a medium-sized dog. I digress. I'm sorry, but it is the end of our show. So for our fellow Marylanders out there, Tim, what would you say is one or a couple of the most important things you would like our audiences to know about their rights when it comes to having an animal?
Certainly. If you have a disability, certainly know your rights, not just as far as having an animal, just more broadly speaking under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And as far as landlord-tenant relations go, open and honest communication is always good between a landlord and a tenant for both parties' sake. So if you can have that kind of relationship with your landlord, then that should take care of most issues.
Yep. Thank you for that. And of course, we're here and ready and available to help if you do need to talk to an attorney one-on-one. So thank you so much for joining us this week, Tim. Next week, audiences, I will be talking with Maryland Legal Aid's tax sale expert, attorney Robin Jacobs, to answer your question about tax sales. So make sure that you tune in next week if you think that's going to be helpful to you. And of course, if you do have a question about tax sales, what your rights are when it comes to tax sales, leave a comment down below or email us or private message us. And of course, if you did find today's video particularly helpful or particularly enjoyable, make sure you share this video and remember to tune in next week at noon. Thank you. Have a good weekend.